the more you dive into the Zionist movement, the more you realize why they wanted Donald Trump to win so much. I've just never seen so much insanity in my life surrounding this movement, and the moral duplicity and the cruelty embedded in it is just so shocking. The only thing I can compare it to is MAGA, so it makes sense that they've colluded together. Kylie, pop this up. There is a group called Stop Anti-Semitism, and they have announced it's that time of the year, the 2025 Anti-Semite of the Year. Vote for your top 3 candidates by Friday, December 12th. Ro Connor retweets this. Okay, they put Miss Rachel, the YouTube preschool teacher phenom, who all she does is speak about love and compassion for children. She's never said one anti-Semitic thing in her entire life. Ro Connor retweets this and says, Miss Rachel is a preschool teacher who speaks up for starving children in Gaza. That is not anti-Semitism. I hope thousands will join me in standing up for her. And we all must stand up for her. She is standing up for the most defenseless, the most marginalized people on the planet, Miss Rachel is. Her desire to shed light on the genocide and the Holocaust that is happening in Gaza, I would think that the survivors of the German Holocaust would collaborate with her on that. And the problem that I see with all of these Zionists is the fact that Israel has targeted in the head, in the chest, bombed hospitals, bombed schools, all of these civilians. The facts on the ground are a problem for them. So then they demean the people that let their eyes tell them what they're seeing and their ears tell them what they're hearing are facts. And you have this whole movement where they are weaponizing anti-Semitism against people who are fighting for human rights. It's so screwed up. I can barely even wrap my head around it. This movement, this pro-Zionist, pro-Israel movement has gotten so deranged and so twisted. It's just absolutely stomach turning.
Well, and I credit Miss Rachel with making what the suffering in Gaza kind of mainstream, because when you have little kids, you maybe aren't watching the news, but it's on in the background. So I give her a lot of credit for that. And we cannot say you have to agree with everything in Israel and their government led by a criminal. You have to agree with that or you're an anti-Semite. That's just not the case. And it's false equivalency and it's disgusting. And the worst part about it is we have real problems to take care of here. All the human rights violations, but they want to focus on one that benefits them. It's just, I don't get it.
It's absolutely stunning. And if you notice on that list, the majority of them, aside from Tucker Carlson, are liberals. And if the Stop Anti-Semitism movement were legit and it were real, the best way to stop anti-Semitism would be for the descendants of the Holocaust to stand firmly against the MAGA regime that has embraced Nazism. You have a president of the United States that went to dinner with Nick Fuentes. Charlottesville, both sides. Elon Musk didn't make the list, and check my notes, but within the last year, he did 2 Sig Heils. But they don't dare criticize the MAGA movement because they own him. They own them. They paid over $200 million to make sure that Trump got elected so that they could continue their genocide. And the moral duplicity and the moral depravity in this movement should be called out all the time. And the Democratic leaders, the Democratic establishment, instead of being controlled opposition, should be the moral voice with crystal clear clarity moving forward about how fucked up it is that group is zeroing in on a humanitarian and child's right activist, Miss Rachel, and they just lost. I mean, you're just losing people left and right. I mean, I have never seen a walking, talking advertisement so much against Zionism as all you have to do is follow what the Zionists do and listen to them speak, because they are advertising against themselves at every single term. And with that, I want to say, I know a lot of Jewish people who are appalled by the actions of Benjamin Netanyahu, who are appalled by the actions of groups like Stop Anti-Semitism. And so I just think it's just like I'm appalled by the MAGA movement. So I think that's disgusting, and I just wanted to bring it up. All right, moving along. This is kind of a miscellaneous episode of some stories I found interesting over the last 2 or 3 days. Trump basically has wrapped himself up into bubble wrap. He's a complete snowflake, incapable of living in reality. And the Atlantic did some reporting on this and said President Trump has never before been in such an echo chamber. His domestic travel has basically stopped. He sees rich donors and MAGA media, not actual voters. Everyone around him is saying he is right, but polls show more Americans thinking he is wrong. So this makes sense to me, you know, how he's completely isolated, and you hear him say, my polling is the highest it's ever been. I'm polling 90%. And Pumps and I was just like, but I think he's surrounded by so many sycophants, and they just tell him what he wants to hear. And you might remember Trump 1.0, and the whole time that Biden was president, he was on a perma campaign. He did those rallies all the time. This lame duck with full-blown dementia wrapped himself up in bubble wrap and is surrounded by sycophants.
Well, he plays golf. He goes to Mar-a-Lago. Those are his activities. But here's what's so funny about this. These people that surround him are the biggest bottom feeders, and they're saying, oh, you're so great. But you see when he's with the press, when he gets just a tiny bit of pushback, he's like, you're a pig, quiet piggy, you know, you're not smart, blah, blah, blah. So imagine the meltdown he has with people in his inner circle if they even try to tiptoe up to, you don't have a 90% approval rating, or you might need to move off this position. He can't take it. He goes fucking nuts, which is what a bully, malignant narcissist does.
Okay, so Fox News has started this whole new thing where they're going to integrate Christianity into their reporting, and they have a lot of women delivering this message. And this is the wife of Secretary of Transportation Duffy, the guy who ran around in his panties before he was appointed to this job. And this is the guy who runs around saying, hey, if you dress better at the airport, you'll have a better flying experience. Okay, this is his wife, and she is a Fox News pundit, you guys. She has a full-time job. This woman is a working mother that works full-time. She has a full-time job, and she has the audacity to say this to women. Play the clip.
And I think it's really up to us to reclaim our culture. We can sit and complain about it, but when we give in to those atheist groups that keep suing, we should come right back. This is our culture. I'm not going to let, pro-Palestinian or whatever they're putting forward. These are all fronts for, whenever you see any of these groups, just think feminism, secularism, just think communism. This is what they're really about. It's always been about communism, making the state the center, removing the power of religion and family from our culture. And it's up to us to make sure that our culture remains what it is, which is a Western Christian culture with the beautiful history that we have in this country, and that we have to defend these things every single day, especially with our children. So put out your nativity scenes. Don't give in.
Absolutely. Okay. What this is, you guys, this is at the heart of Republican politics for multiple decades, but particularly it's a part of MAGA politics, and it's buzzword politics. She did not say one thing that made any sense, but she threw out buzzwords: feminism, communism, Christian values, pro-Palestine, Judeo-Christian values, women, staying at home. It's all buzzword politics to a dumbed down audience, Fox viewers, who they believe in these things, and it doesn't click in their minds. Oh, she's talking about women being like stay-at-home moms. She's not a stay-at-home mom. She works full-time. All of the women at Fox News, Pam Bondi, Caroline Levitt, all of them that talk about traditional family values, they're all full-time working mothers. And so this is buzzword bullshit that hits hard in rural America and suburban America. But here's the thing, those buzzwords, they've had a good run with them. The buzzwords are not bringing down the cost of living. The buzzwords being applied to the most immoral, depraved administration this country has ever seen. I mean, the depravity coming out of Donald Trump with an assist from hypocritical Christians like her and Riley Gaines and Caroline Levitt, who sit there and Christian signal to their rural voters and weaponize their faith against them and just lie to them with impunity, is so disgusting. And I guess 3 out of 10 Americans believe that shit, but I always want to remind you, 7 out of 10 don't. 7 out of 10 believe in human rights and social justice. And that woman and her husband and all of the people surrounding Donald Trump are total hypocrites that use your faith against you so that they can suck the money off the working class to give it to wealthier people. That is about as anti-Jesus as it gets.
Well, here's the thing. Trump is sitting there saying communism's bad, or these pundits are. He is the one that's making government bigger, putting them in every decision, taking percentages of private companies. But most Americans don't know the definition of communism, but they know when a female says, we don't want feminism, they're like, well, yeah, we don't, because this is the most misogynistic administration. And we cannot lose sight of the Bible is patriarchal, misogynistic. So this is right up all their alleys.
All right, listener, every morning when Pumps and I prepare for this podcast, we go to one place, Ground News. They're basically the Spotify of news, telling you who owns each outlet, where it leans politically, and whether you're reading original reporting or recycled messaging. But my favorite part is whether there are actual facts in the article. Here's an example. Venezuela calls Trump airspace closure declaration illegal. It tells me this is a left-leaning article with a very high factuality. Another article on the same subject says, Trump says don't read anything into it when asked about declaring Venezuela's airspace closed. This is a right-leaning publication, and it tells me this has mixed factuality, meaning partially true, partial lies. So obviously, I'm not going to read that one. Listener, you should get this plan. I use it every day. Join us by going to groundnews.com/IHIP to get 40% off the Ground News Vantage plan that we use every single day. They're subscriber funded. Our favorite part, they're female founded. By subscribing, you're not only getting a tool we all need today, you're also supporting our work. That's ground, GROUND, news.com/IHIP. Kylie and Seth have linked it right below in the show notes. Okay, speaking of the Bible, I just wanted to give you all a little update on a story we did about the University of Oklahoma had a student who got an F deservedly on a paper. She wrote a shitty paper. She's barely literate about gender roles. And basically she said that God made women to be man's, quote, helper, and this bullshit Iron Age worldview. All right. Well, of course she makes an F, and it turns out that her professor is a trans woman. So a lot of internet sleuths have been looking into this, and it's been discovered the mother of this poor young girl that's a student at the University of Oklahoma who has just been religiously abused by her psychotic mother, her psychotic preachers, and her psychotic peers, because this culture that creates this spiritual warfare, culture war shit in the South is just, you guys, I cannot impress upon you enough how cruel and fucked up it is. So her mother, it turns out, was a January 6th lawyer. All right, pop this up. So the mother posts on January 20th, finally, justice is done. The J6 hostages will go down as the most persecuted domestic political prisoners in history. Biden's DOJ destroyed their lives. Those of us attorneys who represented them had our hands tied in federal court in D.C. Thank you, President Trump. And somebody responds to her tweet. She's just been crashing out on Twitter since her daughter is going viral with getting an F. The mom of the subliterate Christo-fascist college essay bitch being a January 6th lawyer has sent me to the moon. So here's my theory. Here's what obviously happened, I think. So in the MAGA world, their big thing is trans. Like, it's trans everything, and everybody's going into the bathrooms and they're whacking wieners off and they're doing all this shit. So this girl who's been religiously abused and exploited her whole life, the daughter of this cult member, her mother, that's an attorney that represented felons who tried to overthrow the government, has religiously abused her daughter for her entire life. Her daughter goes to school, calls the mother and says, "Oh my God, I have a transgendered professor." And they tee this thing up. They deliver it to Turning Point USA, throw feces all over the internet, and embarrassingly and devastatingly, the University of Oklahoma gives this nut cult member and her religiously abused daughter more cover and more oxygen for their insanity. And they don't stand up, especially considering it is a trans professor, especially considering that they probably needed to vet that this girl didn't have like anti-trans bigotry, which clearly she does, because if you go to the mother's Twitter feed right now, it's a bunch of anti-trans shit. So this was a total hit job by this whacked out lawyer who's religiously brainwashed and abused her daughter her whole life and led her, this will be out there forever. And then the Turning Point USA, the University of Oklahoma, suspends the teacher while they look into this. I have a son that's in law school at the University of Oklahoma. He is fucking mortified right now. He went to Syracuse for undergrad. And he's like, if something like this happened at Syracuse, Mom, people would be protesting on campus. Nothing, because the culture that these Republicans have sown in Bible Belt states is so toxic. You even get the educated people at universities to bend to it, to bend to the patriarchy. And that's the biggest problem, biggest autopsy of this whole thing. People around other MAGA people always let them get away with racism, always let them get away with moral duplicity, let them get away with being religious hypocrites. They enable the moral duplicity, and they have for decades, just like the University of Oklahoma just did here. And it just falls on all of us moving forward. If you have racists in your life, call them out. Tell them, I'm not going to be around you if you're going to say racist things. If you have religious hypocrites in your life, call them out. And it's going to take all of us to get over this backslide into this Iron Age bullshit, megachurch thinking that is just eroding red states and now is morphing up to other states. Pumps.
Well, it's devastating, and it's not at all surprising. I'm devastated by the University of Oklahoma and their actions. I'm not the least bit surprised that the Turning Point USA illiterate girl that wrote the essays, mother, is calling the January 6ers hostages after they took a shit in the Capitol. That all tracks. That's all exactly on point. But the disappointing part is the University of Oklahoma did not defend their student body. They did not say everybody has to do the same requirements, whether you're a Buddhist, a Hindu, Jewish, whatever you are, you have to fall within the requirements of the assignment that is scientific, not religious. And what they did is they empowered this going forward, and it's devastating.
And they allowed trans bigotry,
yes,
oxygen, and they should have been especially protective
Agreed.
Of that professor, knowing the political climate of all of the transphobia that the MAGA regime has embraced and platformed. And they should have been especially cautious before they made any claim like, now, wait a minute, this girl's writing this huge Bible thumper, very sexist, very Iron Age essay. It's safe to assume she's probably transphobic. And then if you Googled the mother, and she's out there, as Pump said, defending January 6th felons and calling them hostages. These people are crazy. This mom's in a cult. She's indoctrinated her daughter. And the sad thing is, the one stop in this girl's life, this young adult life, would have been the university to just sit her down and say, I'm sorry, you don't get to live in La La Land. That's not how this works. But everybody always caves to these patriarchal structures, even universities. And in Oklahoma, the religious abuse that has taken place in these mega churches and in the culture, the one place where anybody has a snowball's chance of hell of getting somewhat out of the brainwashing is school, public school, or a university or a community college. And the fact that the University of Oklahoma bent the knee is just so appalling. All right, that's all we have for today. Please like, subscribe, and we'll be back later with more news.